Welcome to IDDTalks. My name is Anastasia Lavrina. Today we're joined by Mr. Richard Spooner, member of the advisory board at the Caspian Policy Center based in Washington, D.C. We're welcome to IDDTalks.
My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. So in our today's talks, I'm going to ask you about the foreign policy of the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, his decision to impose the tariffs on China, Mexico, Canada, and the consequences it may have on the European Union and global trade. So the first question, recently, President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, declared that BRICS is dead, following his earlier threats of tariffs against the group. President Trump also made headlines by threatening countries with steep tariffs if they attempt to play games with the dollar. What's your take on these bold comments, particularly in relations to BRICS?
Well, I think that the main thing that concerns President Trump about BRICS, as you mentioned, is this idea that they might create their own currency. Obviously, BRICS from the very beginning has been about reducing the global dominance of the US dollar, as well as being about, multipolarism. I don't see BRICS actually creating their own currency. They've made a move to create an alternative to the SWIFT system for international monetary transfers. They call it BRICS Pay. And they're going to be using their own local currencies with each other within that system. Plus Brazil, one of the founding members of BRICS, has already said it doesn't want to have one common currency. So I don't really see that as a threat. So if that doesn't happen, then I think President Trump's attitude toward BRICS would be more or less the same as it is toward everybody else, which is if you have any import customs duties on our goods from the United States, then we're going to have reciprocal tariffs on your goods coming to the United States.
Well, so you think Donald Trump's BRICS is dead statement was more about positioning against China, especially given that the group is seen as a counterbalance to the West?
I think that President Trump sometimes makes statements that are a little more emotional than we're used to hearing from American presidents. Saying it's dead doesn't mean it's dead, but he's simply expressing his own very strong opinion about it because he doesn't want to see anyone threatening the dominance of the US dollar, because that's very important to him.
Indeed, very interesting. So do you think Trump's threat of tariffs, particularly with a focus on the dollar, effectively pushed BRICS to reconsider its approach? Or you think it may have the opposite effect of making BRICS nations more determined to build a counterweight to the United States of America?
Well, I think the BRICS countries in general recently have shown a strong desire to increase and strengthen their economic cooperation. I think, though, that like a lot of issues relating to BRICS as a group, in the end, the most important thing is one member of BRICS being China. And I think that, of course, I don't know, not behind the curtain there in Washington, but I think that President Trump looks upon China as a country with whom he's going to have an important and perhaps difficult bilateral relationship. And I have a feeling that his people in Washington are looking at this more in terms of, okay, we have issues with China. We're going to work them out, or we're going to have a trade war, or whatever we're going to have. We're going to look upon it within the framework of our bilateral relationship with China primarily, as opposed to considering BRICS the main issue.
Well, could you please tell us a bit more about the trade war between the United States of America and China? European Union already expressed its deep concern about the possible outcomes and the consequences for the global trade. Therefore, in details, what are the perspectives, long-term consequences?
Well, President Trump has talked about putting tariffs on all countries that have customs duties on U.S. goods. With China, of course, the issue is complicated by the recent discussion that's heated up around critical minerals. China has said that it will stop exporting certain critical minerals to the United States and other countries. That puts in danger a lot of economic plans, specifically the energy transition, but just in general. Those minerals are called critical for a reason. And the fact is that China, although some people don't like talking about this, but China has an effective monopoly on the critical minerals industry, not because all of them are mined in China, but almost all of them are processed, in China. And China has the proprietary technology on processing those minerals. So China already holds a very strong position there. And it's going to take concerted efforts by other countries to even make a dent in that position that China holds with critical minerals.
Right. So do you think Trump's broader economic strategy, its trade policy, and the unique American approach to the global trade market, it will actually leave the United States in a stronger position on the global stage, or vice versa, it will isolate the country?
There's the potential to isolate the country. What we're going to have to see is how this policy that President Trump has announced on introducing tariffs, how it actually plays out in real life. Because so far, it's something that President Trump has said he's going to do, or he will threaten that he's going to do with tariffs. But it's possible that he could temper some of those decisions. And it's possible, as I said, that in the bilateral relationship with China, the two countries will find ways to identify some things that are in both of their interests that they would like to not ruin, and that they'll find a way to mitigate their differences on some of these other issues and maybe avoid a total trade war.
Well, and my last question, given Donald Trump's approach to Russia, particularly his willingness to engage directly with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, how did this impact the energy trade, especially with Europe? Did it create vulnerabilities in the global energy market?
I think that in general, with the arrival of the new administration in Washington, the issue of America's relationship with the European Union is really all up in the air right now. Like you said, President Trump's administration is negotiating a settlement of the war in Ukraine without the participation of Ukraine and without the participation of the European Union. And the idea that the U.S. would put tariffs on Europe the same as it would put tariffs on any other group of countries, well, that speaks to a whole new look at what the relationship between America and the European Union is or has been. It's completely different because there was always a special relationship, a history, a closeness on policy. Of course, even within the European Union, there are, I'd like to say, a small group of countries who seem to be a bit of outsiders if you want to look in terms of sort of the core policies of, let's say, France, Germany, and the Western European countries. So I think that, it's going to be, there could be some dramatic changes in the way that America interacts with the European Union in general. I mean, just to finish that, President Trump's defense minister already said that once there is an end to the war in Ukraine, there won't be any U.S. peacekeepers there. that's something Europe can do. And yet Europe is not even involved in the negotiations right now on ending the war. These could be the seeds of, a very contentious period of time between America and the European Union.
Mr. Spooner, thank you. Thank you so much for joining IDDTalks.
My pleasure, Anastasia.